Welcome back to another episode on the Hermitcraft server. Today I want to start things off by showing you one of the coolest Minecraft builds I've ever seen. I was doom scrolling Instagram the other day, just really locked in on the reels, and I stumbled across this absolute gem by JACKYBOY MC. It's probably one of the coolest Minecraft builds I've ever seen. It makes use of command blocks to do animated faces and things, but the structure itself and just the way the whole build fits together is honestly... It got me so excited. Like, I saw it, and within like 3 seconds of the reel starting, I was like, I need to play Minecraft right now. Like, I want to start playing now. I'm so inspired. So I'll put a link to all of their pages down in the description. They do a wonderful job on all of the content they produce. The builds are fantastic. And I gotta say, it's given me some ideas for my structure. You see, my base is kind of unbalanced, right? It goes up like this and then mainly kind of leans over to the right. And I've always maintained that this is totally fine because Joel's base is so massive that it kind of balances out the composition of my base, right? Like, my base leans right, but then Joel's base kind of goes left. So everything sort of works itself out. However, there is potential that I could actually fill this space in here with some kind of build and then have something that connects up the two builds, and then I wouldn't be so reliant on Joel's base. It definitely wouldn't be bigger than this one. It's definitely going to fit sort of within this zone here, which I think actually could level things out a little bit more. So what am I thinking build-wise? Currently, there is no way for the player to interact with my brain, which seems like a bit of a lonely existence for little old me. So I thought it would be cool to have a keyboard with a single letter text display. So you can input something into a keyboard, or maybe even program in a message, and then the text display will display the characters one by one, and then we'll have a line that connects the two so you can see the letters being transmitted into the brain. And then once the string of letters is finished, this guy can react to it. That sounds incredibly cool and incredibly complicated. It's time for us to hit the redstone testing world. So the first thing that I wanted to do is get every letter written down in a way that it can be represented using a 7-segment display. And that is kind of easy up to a point. M is a problem, but I feel like this works. Like, for some reason, that feels like M to me. Definitely V. That's a hard one. So we got U here, we got big U, and then V, and then W. Oh boy. We've been creative with that one. And then this is X, which definitely looks like H. But H I've done as a non-capital. That's over there. In the interest of keeping the programming for this relatively simple, I think sticking with a 7-segment display is the way to go. It doesn't feel like too much of a compromise. Because, yeah, the only way that I can think I could do it otherwise is maybe having some diagonal segments, 2 extra ones, which would be a 9-segment display. But that doesn't solve the M and the W, so then I'd still need, it would be like an 11... maybe even 14-segment display. That's getting crazy. And what do I mean by 7-segment display? Just in case you weren't aware, it's one of these, like a little digital screen. And then each one of these, we've got 1, 2, 3 segments there, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 segments to our display. I hope that makes sense. So now it's time to start the programming. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about how I'm going to do this, and I actually think that the input to this whole thing, the keyboard, should just be putting renamed items into a chest. So you would write out your message. You would say like how space R space U with renamed pieces of paper, and those pieces of paper would be dropped out into an item sorter, and then each slice of the item sorter would send signals through to the 7-segment display, and then they would be displayed on the screen, and then we could detect the end of the string by detecting when this chest is empty with a bit of a delay, and it will allow us to store the entirety of the message. I think this could be the way to go. Now, I've just realized using a dropper for this could actually add some complication. We can't allow any of the items to go into the dropper. Like, it should only be 1 item at a time because of the way that droppers randomize the outputs. But a system like this should work quite well. So we've got our message stored up here, and then if we quickly depower this hopper, only the first item should leave. Okay, yeah, that works. So now I've got our water stream right here that will shoot out items into these honey blocks, and then they will go along the side like this, being caught by our hoppers, which we just saw working quite nicely there. And then we have the old faithful item filter. My goodness, I've been playing a lot with item filters lately due to the new copper golems, and I gotta say, I've been left a little bit confused by some of the comments. People have been saying how they can't understand how the copper golem sorters are simpler than item filter based systems, and like they're probably not simpler, but really, I mean, they kind of are, but like the main thing is that the copper golem ones, you know, you only need 9 chests with copper golems to sort 450 items. Each one of these slices sorts 1 item. You'd need 450 of them. In Hermitcraft Season 10, the season that we're currently in, I actually have a sorting system that's like the ones that are created by the copper golems, and it's so good. It's so good. Most people don't need their items fully sorted. They just need them organized. And the copper golems are absolutely perfect for that. So I personally, despite their insane, completely wacky AI, am really excited by them and have really enjoyed playing around with them. I mean, look at this thing. This thing's sorting 26 different items. 26. That is all. It's going to use nearly 100 hoppers. But that's nothing compared to what's coming next. Here's the deal. I want as little redstone as possible to be going above the ground. So the beauty of this system is this can all go under the ground in the mountain. It can be as big as I want it to be, but the redstone above ground, I want to keep that as slim as possible. So we can effectively have like a flat screen TV up there. Now, one way that I can do this is I can send 7 pulses through a single line of redstone that are timed equally apart. And then when they reach the 7-segment display, they'll essentially snake their way through it. And then I can lock all of the repeaters at once. And where the redstone signal is, those segments will power on. Where the redstone signal isn't, they will be switched off. The only issue is, currently, this design would require 26 slices of 7 sticky pistons with 7 observers. And that's quite a lot. That is quite a lot. Actually, now that I think about it, for the segments that are missing, I suppose we wouldn't need a piston and an observer, but still, it's a lot. I promise this will all start to make sense once I start building it. Maybe. Actually, I can't promise anything. Oh, do I actually want to make this work with trapdoors? That'll be more fitting with the theme. Okay, I think I've got a layout that works, potentially. So the purple section is the top segment, and then each one of the pig ones is these. Green is this middle segment here, and then the yellow ones are these segments, and then the blue one is this bottom segment here. Now, I've left enough space next to all of these for them to be able to lock properly. So what I have to do is unlock all of the repeaters and then send a redstone signal between each one of these modules 2 ticks apart from one another, and then relock all the repeaters. Okay, that sounds simple, but also sounds like it's not simple. Part number 1 is done. I've got all of these connected up, all 2 ticks apart from one another. I'm just going to quickly check to see that this is in fact all working. So we should see. I think that's good. I've placed the trapdoors in slightly odd orientations, but I think that's right. Wait, it's only 4 trapdoors tall. What? I somehow managed to mess this up. Right, we've got the top layer, and then we've got this segment here. Let me close all of these. Yeah, I've done something totally wrong. How could I not have noticed that? Time to go back and rewire everything. This time I've wired it better with an enormous logical flaw, which means it doesn't work. So I guess I haven't wired it better. But now I actually have wired it better, and it is working. You can see each one of the individual segments is lighting up, and if we lock our repeaters at any given moment, we can select one of the segments to stay powered on, which is really important. And that means this machine is actually going to work. It's a little bit messy, it's a little bit ugly, but it's still pretty small. Like, this is how big the redstone needs to be up at the top, which is very exciting. I think this will fit within basically anything I decide to construct up there. It's not like I'm having to design my structure around something like this, so yeah, we've got a lot of creative freedom, but we are still not quite finished. Now I need to start programming in the pulses for all of our letters, and also work out how to do the unpowering, then repowering of our repeater locker circuit. That's a really complicated way of saying I need to put a pulse extender in. that's timed correctly. Actually, not even that. I'm going to do something that I think is a smart idea. So when we do our pulses for our letters, regardless of what the letter looks like, we're going to send one initial pulse to essentially announce to this machine that I have a letter trying to come through the system. And that is going to trigger an RS NOR latch, which will then toggle our repeaters to unlock. So that should be that. Yeah, that will toggle them to unlock. And then when the pulse travels through the final part of the circuit, it needs to toggle them to relock. Yeah, that works. I'm going to do this in a slightly less messy fashion, but it is now all in place. And I've put in a series of pulses that should render an 8. Now, I haven't timed any of this at all. What on earth was that? It didn't even... Oh, gosh. And, like, so many things went wrong there. What? Wait a second. If I fly over to my calculator, I used a fairly similar system in this. How far apart the pulses? Yeah, okay. So they're 2 tick pulses, 4 ticks apart from one another. And I currently have 2 tick pulses 2 ticks apart from one another. And before I have to deal with all the comments saying I should just change these repeaters to 4 ticks, that would make the pulse 4 ticks. I need 2 2-tick repeaters, which is, generally not possible, at least with the current wiring. But with this new, slightly bigger, slightly uglier wiring again, it is now working. So if I flick this lever, we can see each one of the segments lights up individually with a little gap between them. My goodness, we're finally getting there. We've got 2 observers, so that's 2 pulses going into the system. Then we should just get this one lighting up. Good stuff. Right, if we put 3 observers into the system, then we should get a little sort of this shape. Good. Okay, let's start adding some more. What if I put this many in? So that is 2 extra segments being lit up. Does it still work? Yes! Yes, it does! I am now converting pulses into actual things. Right, so all of the observers in place should give us an 8. Curious. I think all I have to do is add a little bit of delay, because I think the final pulse was still powering the bottom dropper, which meant that our relocking circuit didn't work. Let's try again and see what happens. Yes! I'm now converting pulses from a redstone line into actually meaningful outputs. So now it's time to finish up the encoder. This is a very strange looking redstone mechanism, isn't it? But this redstone line right here is all we need to connect up the encoder to our decoder. So as I've said, this will kind of sit under the ground somewhere, hidden away, and then a redstone line runs up into our structure itself, and this is all we need up at the top. So now I need to start building up the order of our pulses. So I've written out what each line of observers represents, and if we take, for example, an A, we need all of the parts powered other than bottom middle. So that means just that observer should be missing. So now, here comes the moment of truth. I'm going to put the letter A into our sorting system. Oh, and that actually will have powered. And oh my goodness, we have the letter A. Yes! 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 Oh, and now that I think about it, B is pretty easy because that is all of the segments. So let's fill these in. That should do it. We should see our pulses being sent through, and we have got the letter B. For simplicity's sake, I've made it so that you're not able to send numbers using this system. This should be the programming for the letter C. Let's have a look. Yes. 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 So now it was time for me to spend a few hours programming in all of the different letters. There we go. Everything should now be fully mapped out, so I'm going to start working on a system that will allow us to put in our first message into the system. I think it's only fair that we start with hello. I'm not going to do hello world because my W is mildly embarrassing. I fear that I've erred too much on the side of caution with my pulse extender, and we could get a little bit of delay between each one of the letters, but regardless, here we go. It is going to be all of these. We have spelled it out. And now all I have to do is flick this lever right here, and we should see, okay, there is our first letter going into the system, and H has appeared. That is good. Our pulse extender, yeah, it's probably a little bit on the slow side. But, you know, this guarantees that we're really going to be able to read our message. Here comes E. Yes. This is working really, really well. It's incredibly satisfying knowing that all of this information is being sent through a single redstone line. There is our first L. We have another L to send, which should be pretty obvious. We should see it all shuffle, so there's not going to be any confusion that we've got a single L. There it is. It's come through, and then finally the last letter will be the O. There it is, going through the system. I can see the observers firing. There is our O. And there we go. That's really cool. Oh, and I've just realized we could pre-program messages. So I could make it so that not only can you send messages into the message board, but also the machine could have pre-programmed messages that are like randomized. It could be done using shulker boxes. Oh, wow. That has the potential to be really quite exciting. So here we are, back on the Hermitcraft server, ready to start the construction. And I need to work out where this is going to go, because my base is in a delicate balance and I'm incredibly happy with how my base currently looks. So I absolutely do not want to mess this up. But I'm kind of envisioning almost something like this, but bigger. So something like this, going up, and then the structure actually sitting at the top. Oh my goodness, I'm scared. My plan of action for today is quite simply to do what I did with the bulbous creation, and that is just map things out and get them placed, and then I can sit with the shape. You know, I can log in every now and again over the next few days and just stare at it for like 10-15 minutes, see how I feel about it, make my tweaks before actually making the commitment to construct the thing. So let's start things off by doing what Scar suggested, which was called a height stick. Was it called a height stick? It was a Disney-related term. It's a thing, a balloon. It's a balloon thing. They put out balloons to see how high the rides want to be. See, Scar, I do listen to your Disney talks. So this is just a height reference marker to get a feel for scale. And I'd say probably about here seems right. Let's have a look. Oh, it's probably a bit too tall, you know? I actually think maybe we're okay. The thing is, it needs to be separate from the town itself, but also can't fight too much with this build. Honestly, I actually think that the landmass should go to about here, and then the head of our computer goes a little bit taller than this, but probably sits about there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 blocks lower. I need to consider this from other angles as well. I do think that looks all right. And I would say this looks okay as well. Yeah. If I imagine the area above the skyline of the town being a little bit more boulderous. So we have a few more boulders kind of dotted around in here and then rising up and then falling off down the side. I would say we are in a good place. So I'm starting to fill things out a little bit, and immediately, again, everything starts to get nerve-wracking. I don't have any gradient or anything on this, which honestly, I'm not sure this is a good idea, because it's obviously painting the wall in the worst possible light. Like, this is nowhere near what it's going to end up looking like, but I guess in the same vein, I am now going to see it in the worst possible light, and then it is going to improve from there, hopefully. So I guess that's something. Well, I don't mind that already. In terms of shape, that's not too bad. Oh, now the question is, do I build it as a cliff that sort of wraps behind this, or do I do it more as like a freestanding pinnacle? I'm honestly weirdly leaning more towards cliff now that this is in place. And then if the top of this gets terraformed a little bit and we get some boulders and things going on up here, I actually think that could lead to quite a nice setup that would also separate the two builds quite well. Oh my goodness, I am currently making decisions that massively affect the overall composition of my base on the fly. These are the sorts of activities that generally end in tears. But you know what? I actually think I'm striking quite a nice balance here. Like, I actually feel like this is looking good because we have this going on and then this going on and then this almost counteracts it and then leads onto, yeah, Joel's massive base. So if we just kind of continue this and roll it off into this cliff, which already exists, I actually think we could be onto a winner. Again, it's a little bit less of a freestanding pinnacle than I originally imagined in my head. I kind of imagined it as like a point that the building sat on top of, but I think this mildly rolling cliff edge actually suits the slightly softer style of my base better. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? That's actually quite nice. I think extend this a little bit more so it feels less like a twin peak and more like a pair of rollers. But that is super cool. That is super cool, and it's had zero detailing done. Oh my goodness, that actually looks like it's kind of part of it. It looks like it's existed the entire time. That's mad. And that's gone really well. Why does this work so well? Is it just because it's covering the back of this? Like, I guess that's quite a busy thing to have, and this has kind of blocked it off, but I don't think that's the case. This literally feels like it should have been here the whole time. Okay, that has gotten me incredibly excited. That has made me very happy. I've spent like 3 or 4 days thinking of ideas of how I could integrate some of this technology into my base, and then I've spent multiple days working on that redstone contraption, just banging my head against the wall, thinking about how I would achieve my goal of actually making it function. And then this was kind of like the last hurdle, which I wasn't certain on, and it's worked out. Imagining a little build on the top of this with the little screen and the text display, I think it's going to look really cool. Not going to lie, this has been a weird episode for me to work on. I would definitely consider this more of like a behind the scenes episode where you can see me working out my thought process and getting stuff worked out, but we have taken huge steps in the right direction, and I think it's going to be a massive asset to the end product of the base. So in the next Hermitcraft episode, I'm going to get to do all the creative bits, designing the actual exterior of the structure, getting all of the terraforming started, getting all of the details in that cliff face. I cannot wait. I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!